the leadership shift. Today, I'm welcoming Carlos Hoyos. He is a global C-suite executive coach, and we will have a lot to learn from him. So, welcome, Carlos. Just to start, how did you come to the executive coaching? Can you tell us a little what is your background and how you come to this profession?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show, Aurélien. It's just such a pleasure talking to you, and uh, I'll definitely learn a lot with you as well, as I have learned already in our previous moment online, right? So, how did I get to the executive coaching? I don't think I planned this. This has just happened because it happened. I had a corporate life with IBM and Motorola, and in one moment, um, when I was still living in the US and working for IBM, I realized that the great changes happened not because of technology, processes, or systems. That we had all that in IBM. I mean, it's like endless amount of resources at least at that moment. But the key changes were with people. And when I moved back to Brazil, and I already moved back to work with for Motorola, one thing that was just clear to me, it just became even more obvious that working with people was much more interesting for me, and still is more interesting than working with technology. I'm still nerdy. I have a systems engineering degree. I love computers, AI, technology, but these are just tools. They're not the end in themselves. And when I got into coaching was because the training, the facilitators of trainings processes that I lived impact me a lot, and they all were coaches. So I got to understand what that thing is. It was not something, I was not looking for a career or profession. I think I was actually trying to fix me. I'm still working on it. And then one thing leads to another. It's because of my international background, working on bigger companies, and I also joined BNI as a way to develop my business skills and marketing and sales, and of course networking. And then I realized that most people that were actually looking for me were people in the corporate world. They were business owners, they were leaders, middle management, and I started working with them, and naturally things start progressing into a higher tier. So that's essentially what happened. I'm not sure I answered your question. I love your question. It made me
No,
go back in time and recover interesting memories.
no, no, it's very nice. And I would like to know, because this is about the leadership shift. So I wanted to know, do you see a difference between what is management and what is leadership, or is it the same for you?
Oh, I definitely see the difference. And after
Okay,
learning
and
with you,
what
I
is
wouldn't
the
say anything apart from that. I mean, to me, it's management is a lot more like numbers and results, KPIs, processes. It's just like brain work. And I see leadership as like heart, vision, connection, human kind of guiding. So this is like both roles, and I don't see anybody that's successful now that can be only a manager or only a leader. We need both. They use different set of skills and they look for different things, and it's very important to merge. I definitely see those things as different. Um, and it was even interesting because I was referring to one of my clients today, works in a huge company, number one in its segment, uh, 1 minute manager. And it's not about management, it's about leadership. So the book is about leadership, but it was used to be called management. So things are changing, and I think they change, but I definitely see those as different things, different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and it is exactly the question that I was about to ask you. Is it very common on your side to have people that have the title of leaders that are actually functioning in the management mindset, that are still running these things and don't understand what they need to do to change, to be better leaders?
Yeah, it's quite
Um,
common still,
yeah,
unfortunately. And I think the
yeah,
reason for this is it's easy to manage things. It's hard to lead people. It's easier to put things in processes and spreadsheets and see the bottom line in terms of numbers. So we tend to manage things, measure things. I mean, it's that there's the maxim, right? You cannot improve something, you cannot measure something that you don't measure. So it's a lot easier to measure things than measure people. And then we have the whole movement now, is, people analytics, because it's trying to connect this, how we measure behavior and results of people. And it's very common. And I think it's even more common, uh, apart from executive coaching. I do business coaching as advisor, right? Directors level, board level. And business owners tend to see the bottom line, sometimes, perhaps more often than high level executives, because this is just like, that's their baby, that's their company. Executives, oh, this doesn't work, I can get another job, go to another company. And they pretty much have this thing going for them. Business owners don't have those opportunities. If they fail, they break badly, and that's their, bread making operation, right? So yeah, I definitely see that, and that's a hard change for most of the business owners, because they learn to focus on numbers and results very soon, otherwise the company wouldn't work, and then they cannot get further up or develop or grow the company because they don't have the leadership skills. So yeah, it's super common.
yeah, yeah. And I would like to know, from your experience, what is the most important skill or element that you will tell the people in leadership need to develop or to work on? What is the most common pain point, I will tell, that you meet as an executive coach?
It tends to vary depending on the moment of the individual, but I always start with self leadership. And self leadership is not a single skill, ability, or um, quality. Just to make sure. I mean, when we lead people, we lead others, we lead them towards a goal, we motivate them, and we need to make sure that we remove, the excess, the barriers. I'm sorry. And self leadership to me is the same thing. We have to be able to motivate ourselves, to inspire ourselves, to get to our results with the minimum amount of effort, time, energy, and money, right? And the first thing is just, I need to know where I want to go. And when people start moving towards that self-reflection or self-awareness path, they realize that, and that definitely happened to me for decades, it's just, you don't really understand why you're doing what you're doing. We say we want something, but when we get there, just, yeah, that's not really what I wanted. So we start buying those ideas. So the whole thing is, you start with self-leadership. You have to understand that, I mean, this is just such a gift to have this life, right? So what we're going to do with our life, people want to be happy, but they don't know what happiness means until they get there and they realize, yeah, that's not really what they want. So they need to have a vision. They need to have a way to get to that vision into reality. So they need to be able to do planning. They need to be able to manage resources. They need to have enough humbleness to realize that some things don't work, they need help. So there's not one single trade, or many different trades. And when you start practicing this by yourself, you realize when you get to other people, it's a lot harder, but you have practice, right? And a lot of people try to lead others and they don't lead themselves. So they understand they have the vision, but they try to motivate others, and that typically doesn't work because they didn't do the work to know themselves, to understand what motivates them, and understand that people, they get motivated by different reasons in different moments of their lives. So you have to have clarity, you have to have vision, you have to be able to create a plan, you have to be able to connect to people, to inspire people, motivate people to get things done. And in the process, you're going to learn a lot of other skills, and essentially communication, persuasion, or influence, they are super important. Because if you don't do good communication, if influence, persuasion are limited, you're not going to be able to get other people to buy your idea or your concept. And that requires a lot of work. So definitely put courage on this. You need to put, determination, commitment on this. So it's not like 3-4 things. It's really hard. I remember that before I actually opened my business 13 years ago, I thought leadership was the hardest thing to do, to develop and to be. And then business owner is harder because apart from leading others and lead yourself, you have to manage a business. So it's much more complicated. And perhaps being an effective dad or a father, that's another thing that's super complicated because you have to inspire and motivate people that by nature they want to rebel against their ancestry, right? The ancestry, the parents. And you start collecting those things and you identify, you need to be able to influence people. To influence people, you need to be able to have a nice vision, create a vision. You have to be able to communicate well and to personalize this communication. And then I want to say, okay, we are motivated. So what we're going to do? So you need to be able to create a plan. So it's just many different things. And it depends on each moment. What would be like the top 3 things that an executive or a business owner would need to work or develop to solve particular issues or get to particular goals?
Yeah, and the vision, I mean, I'm very interested in the vision because when I worked in my previous company, I saw very generic strategy, very visions that were very motivating, but very vague in the same time. And if you ask anybody that was working in any department, they were not clear on why they were working for this company. I mean, what they were bringing to this company. They were understanding what is industry, what they were doing as the job of daily, but they were not understanding this connection between what they were doing and the big vision of what they were delivering. And I think personally that it is the role of the leader to make this connection and make sure that they inspire and, as you tell, influence people. And it is actually really complicated to do this. And I agree with you on this. But what you do with your client to help them to find this vision? Because sometimes it's not even clear at the executive level what is really this vision.
Yeah, it's painfully more common that I would like to admit that is for people not having this vision. That actually became like pieces of or chapters in books, and even an article on Forbes where we got the opportunity to meet, and I remember that it was like founder, decades long, leading the company, and ask him, where do you see yourself in 3 years? It's not like 25 years, not when you're retired. It's like in 3 years. And he didn't know, never thought about it. And that creates problems. So because he didn't have a vision, what he wanted for himself, he was actually holding roles that he was not supposed to hold. Because when you don't have a clear vision for yourself, your identity is defined on your past, not in your future. And that's one of the most difficult things for people to understand when they don't have this perspective. So when you understand that, we tend to, neurologically speaking, and this is validated by neuroscience, if we don't create an ideal vision for ourselves that requires identity shift or adjustments, we tend to repeat ourselves because that's easier, that's predictable. Our brain prefers familiarity than success. Our brain is not looking for success, it's looking for a foreseeable future. So it's a lot simpler just to repeat the past. But we don't tend to grow like that. So people don't have this clarity in general. They see things like moving. Okay, so what I'm going to do now? So they have like a short-sighted vision, and that's important. We need to have that. But when you don't have a longer vision, and I'm a witness of this in my life. Some of the things that happened to me in my career or my professional, as a consultant or as a coach or advisor, it would be simpler, faster if I had a long-term vision. I didn't have that. Now I do have it. And once I start working on these, things start to change faster, and it's less work. It's not as painful. You have to put the work. There are no miracles on this. But if you're just switching for the next step, just for the next level, for the next point, for the next moment, you miss the big picture. And the hardest thing for us to admit as human beings is that is not natural. Human beings are not built to have long-term visions. We are survivors. And if things are good, okay, why do I need to care what's going to happen in 5, 10 years? The reason is, the world is super complex now. We are not fighting for survival because a tiger is going to jump in our, neck, or there's going to be a tribe that's going to be killing everybody. It's going to get the wife or the women of the tribe and the kids. That's unfortunately still happen in some places, but that's not the majority for us in corporate world, at least not in this part of the world, right? So we tend to accommodate and we tend to repeat patterns unless we really have this intentional vision for the long term. And I don't know where we are going to go in this. You probably have these figured out better than me. I'm just give you some of my perspective on this. The next step that would be natural for me is just, okay, so how you create a vision. And to me is a mix of things that you definitely don't want anymore for you, or you see what happened to the previous generations. And I definitely don't want that. So what I want to have instead, what I want to have at a positive. And there are multiple ways of doing this, wheel of life, what you want to be in finances and all that. And once you understand that those things are not disconnected, they are part of a bigger vision, then you start building this, year by year, month by month, day by day. So that's some thoughts on that.
No, it's a very nice things. And I was in my mind was asking, after the vision, what will be the next step? What you will advise people to do after they create this vision? And probably it takes the next step, the starting to act, because we have a lot of people that are this vision, but they tell, as you tell, it's easier to make as I'm used to do, and they go back to this and they don't act. So it's one of the elements that I was telling in my mind. Probably the first step after will be this. I know that you wrote a lot of books. What is the book that you feel the most proud of?
I've been in 8 different book projects, 7 co-authorship, one you're familiar with because you became, international bestseller yourself, and co-authorship with the Jim Britt's series, right?
Yeah.
The book I feel more proud of myself is the Power of Self-Leadership. Is still not in English. We're working on the audiobook version right now, and the second edition is going to be in Portuguese, Spanish, and English, because they're the 3 languages that I work on. And the reason I am proud of it is because I combine the courage to tell my story and so many things that I did that didn't work, so many of my failures, and I needed to put that out. Some people just have like this fantasy of seeing people that are in some way successful and they imagine life is like glorious. It's nothing like that, at least not for me. And the second part is my modeling of self-leadership, the 10 pillars of self-leadership. That makes me proud because it just is the work of my life. It's my life. My life is in progress. I'm still working on this.
Yeah, and you tell something that is very important is success is not a succession of just I succeed, I succeed, I succeed. It's a lot of failures that help you to build from it and learn how to be successful. And I want to highlight it to the audience because people, like you tell, it's not glamorous, and people like Hollywood see only the big success and things like this, but there is a lot of struggle, a lot of things that build. And I know that in your early life, you had very difficult things that build some of the elements that make you know. And if they want to learn more, they have to buy your version of the book of Cracking the Rich Code because you speak about it in it. And it was a very good read in it. And I really appreciate reading this book from you. I would like to ask you a question that I ask to, I mean, every person that I invite ask a question to the next guest. And I would like to ask you the question that was asked for you. That is,
Awesome.
what part of your past are you still letting define your future?
What part of my past is still defining my future? That's something I work every day to not be that, right? Just because of what I said. I project myself based on the future. If I'm open the hood, like, what's the engine is working, I believe the part of the past that makes me continue, not give up, like what made my resilient self. That's something, and actually that might become a problem. I learned that with a mentor. I remember that I prided myself of being super resilient for my life, my past experience, and all that. And he would say, "Careful with this, because when you're super resilient, you just get used to the pain." And I actually got used to pain, not physical pain, well, that as well, but because permanent medical condition that I have, but also in relationships, those things had to become painful because I got used to that. So when I'm conscious, I don't let that define me. I let the things that, okay, I can flex, I can adapt, I can change, I can move. But still, there's some things on this past that are just like, makes me, how can I say this? It would make me unnecessarily hard thing. I would make things harder than they need to be because they have been hard for me in the past. And some part of me learned very soon that in order to have success, I would have to pay a huge price for that. I believe that there are still some parts of me that believe that's true. So I see, good
Okay.
things and not so good things on that.
Very interesting. And my last question, I think, is about your group of four. You are the leader for the networking, and I would like to pick your brain on what make a good network for a person that is a leader, because we have a lot of leaders that want to influence better others, but they don't know how to network really. And I would like to know what will be your few tips or elements that you will tell, okay, if you want to network correctly as a leader, I will apply these 3, 5 elements that will make you successful.
Okay. To me, the most important thing is not like a trick or a hack. Just it's like a fundamental principle. I believe in adding value to people. And the more I think and I process that information, I realize that many different opportunities. I could have added value to other people, and I didn't. I actually took value from other people. And I don't know, I don't know if that's human nature, that we're just more selfish than, giving to others. But to me, the guiding principle is add value. And because of many different reasons, the way networking evolved as a discipline, and not there's some very good movements to try to make networking really helpful. And I tried that before, and I don't think I have been very successful in putting forward a networking that is positive. But okay, perhaps that's my change to help on this. Networking became like a practice to help on sales, and for the individuals to get something out of the practice. So the majority of people doing networking, and I don't say this in a bad way, it's just like observing people, is that people are trying to get out for themselves. It's just like God for us and each one by himself. I don't know where that evolved. Perhaps that's human nature. What I believe as a fundamental principle is that add value to other people. And a lot of people say this in a tactical way. Add value first before you ask. And I found that a little bit of it kind of a manipulation. It's like I'm adding value because at some time I'm going to ask for something. And as a philosophy of life or a principle is just add value to people. If you're used to add value to people all the time, or the most of the time that you can actually do, whenever you need, you're going to have super credit. I mean, there's a lot of people, quote unquote, owe you something because you already helped them. And the confusion I see people making when they consider about how to add value to people is just they think about material things. How can I get somebody a promotion? How I can get somebody like a job or a client as a reference or recommendation. And understand that is definitely value, but what is behind that? Or what is beyond or downstream of that? People will get some sort of an emotional nutrient at the end. They're going to feel more, they're going to feel safer, they're going to feel previsibility, they can forecast things, they're going to have, they have better relationships, they're going to have calm and peace, and they're going to have relief. So when you think about emotional value, we can add value to people at emotional level in a much more profound and easier way than actually helping people get material benefits. So to me, that's the most important thing. If every single relationship we frame, or we have these lenses or these glasses to look at, how can I add value to people? That becomes like a mantra, and you end up being much better at the end of the day than when you started, because you're not really concerned about what you're going to get out of this, because you can get frustrated. I didn't get anything out of something, right? But if your goal is always to help people in a genuine way, when you have the chance, not that you're going to stop everything that you're doing just to help people, otherwise you're going to die, right? You need to, get things done. But if you do that as a frame, as a filter in your life, you're going to end up the day a lot happier than other people, because you can always help people, recognize people, and be legitimately interested on people and make them feel interesting, right? And a tactical way, to me, that's it's presence. That's something I say, pretty much all the time. Whenever I have the chance, is presence is to be present at the present time with the present people and become a present, become a gift. Originally, this is from Portuguese, right? So in Portuguese, present is gift. In English, we don't say present as a gift as often. But that, to me, it's just like the mindset and then the tactic. For me to become a present somebody, I need to pay attention what they need or what they want, and then I can serve them.
Yeah, very nice. And I was thinking when you spoke about the networking, and it came to my mind, how networking is influenced by the artificial intelligence. Do you think we are less good at networking because all this disconnection due to this new technology coming, or it is just we are disconnected with the time and I mean, what make it more difficult to network? Because I feel in the ancient time, people were really connected. They were always speaking in agora, for example, in Greek time. I mean, they were always together. They were speaking, and now networking seems to be so difficult. No, and is it technology? Is it just the evolution of human? What you feel it will be the reason? And I know that it is really personal opinion. It's not something that is science-based, except you write a book or something on this or write research on it that I don't know about yet. But what will be your feeling about it?
I love the way you framed the question. This is really deeper question. I never thought about that. I'm thinking as you were saying this, and really appreciate that because that makes me think harder on the process. So thank you for that as well. The way I sense this is that, and perhaps this is yielded because of some information that I keep on collecting and reading and studying, is that technology sort of separated people when it could connect people. I mean, we can actually be in contact with people around the world, but unless there is an intention, we end up not being connected with them at all. I mean, it's very common to see people in restaurants and every single member of the family or the table, they are connecting their own world. So, I mean, they could be remote connecting, but at that time, they're just eating. They're just not using the time to connect. And when AI made it very simple to have knowledge and knowledge creation and knowledge adaptation and representation of knowledge, we have the tendency, or we don't have the tendency, we have a great opportunity right now to actually focus on connecting with people. And to me, I see networking, it's a relationship building effort that is, it doesn't have to be an event of network. It doesn't have to be a corporate event. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, a workshop. To me, this is relationship building. We are connecting. We're learning more about other individuals' frame of mind, see the world, and that creates a better relationship. I believe that we both grow after this, and we're going to keep on growing if we continue to do this, right? So when I see AI and as an expansion of technology, networking can become more precise because before getting to a meeting or to a connection event or whatever, you can get the right, proper information about the people there. And before, that would require like Googling and doing a lot of research. Now AI can do a lot of that. I mean, we are in a way public figures, right? We have public profiles right now, pretty much everybody. So it's not hard to see what makes our heart tick, right? It's public. And now AI can gather this information in a super fast way, in a very smart way, in a visual way, right? I'm having loads of fun with Notebook LLM from Google. It's just amazing. It changed the way I'm absorbing information and connecting with my own knowledge and saying, wow, I could never imagine that I could present things like this. And just, this is even better. Perhaps I should write an article. I explained something, and when I transcribe and I put in this is much better. And so what's going to happen, it's just the information was available, but it was not structured and personalized. Now it's instantaneous. You can just like press a button wait a few minutes, sometimes seconds, you're going to have any information that you want about pretty much everything that is public or has been public in some moment. And you're going to be able to absorb that information super quickly. So what's going to happen in terms of networking, in my perception? AI, technology, etc., will help to personalize the experiences. And we are going to have more time to actually get deeper into communications and networking. If people are going to use like that, I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps they're going to get the next stage of burnout, right? And this is already happening, right? Right now, there's statistics saying the more AI a company uses, the more burnout people feel. Because now you have AI, you have to produce twice as fast, twice as much as before, and faster than before. So they're using AI not to release time for people, just like to demanding even more from them. And there's very interesting study that shows that the economy is growing, like revenue numbers of the way you measure things in countries and corporate life. Numbers are getting better, but you have fewer people being hired. So you fire more people, you hire less people, and you continue to grow the economy. So because technology and AI is producing that. So the pressure on people is increasing. So instead of using this in a reasonable way, unfortunately, the direction seems to be that we are going to have less time for people because people are stressed out and trying to get jobs and trying to. I see it's possible to use this in a positive way. I don't use AI in an intentional way for networking. One thing that it's pretty clear to me that content is becoming redundant. It's just so easy to enter in LinkedIn and see this is essentially 95% of what's there is AI generated. It's like, why would I care to read something if I can't generate that content by myself? Unless this is humanized, it's personalized, there's actually human connection like networking, I think people are just disconnecting. And I'm sorry, I think I got a tangent here, completely out of where we're
It's
getting.
very
Sorry for that.
interesting. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much, Carlos, for this interview. If people want to reach to you, is there anything that you would like to share with them? A book, your site, anything that will be helpful for you, Carlos?
Well, thank you for this opportunity, Aurelian, and for this. I mean, carloshoyos.com is probably the easiest way of getting there on LinkedIn, and you can find me, send me a message, and it would be great to talk, to connect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carlos, for coming. It was a great exchange. I'm always learning from you. And